Hi everyone, welcome to this short video on understanding your 11 plus mock exam scores and also how to improve performance. So in this video, we'll start by looking at a review of why mock exams. So since all of you are thinking about mock exams and hopefully doing them already, you probably have gone through this, but it's always good to do a small recap. We'll move on to understanding your mock exam scores, what to do if a child is getting a low score in the mocks. We'll look at some time management basics. And finally, I'll share a number of tips on increasing mock exam scores. Yeah. So let's dive right into it. Let's start with a review of why do we do mock exams. Now, there are a number of reasons why we do these. The first one is because they help you benchmark your preparation. Particularly for students who are preparing at home, you don't really have a gauge of how well your child is scoring vis-a-vis the other students, isn't it? And 11 plus is inherently a competitive process. So you need to understand how your child is doing compared to other students. So mock exams help you do that. Now, if you have not started on your mock exam journey till now, I understand it's always a very scary thing sitting for your first mock. But with only a couple of months to go, this is high time that you started getting your child on this journey, even though they might not score, really well in the first mock, but they need to understand the exam pressure. And in a lot of instances, this actually motivates the child and the family to, work harder as well. So if you have not started on this journey, it is highly recommended that you do now. Mock exams also help you get accustomed to the exam pressure. Now, it's not unusual for parents to tell us that, my child was doing really well in the mocks at home. They were scoring maybe 70, 80, 90% even. But, they've taken their first mock and the performance has dipped significantly. Now, this happens every year. The reason is because mock exams and actual exams are not just about subject knowledge. They're also about handling pressure well. And you only get a sense of that pressure when you are in that environment. So mock exams help you assess how your child is going to do in that environment. So that's another benefit. Mock exams also help us identify areas that need improvement. For example, your child might be struggling in algebra, so it kind of highlights that to you. And the sooner you know, the better, because the sooner you know, the more time you have to take corrective steps. Finally, mock exams are just great for practice. So, we have this whole stigma and this whole pressure around mock exams, but it doesn't really have to be like that. Mock exams are, just like any other practice test you might do at home, with the additional benefit of, all these things that we mentioned. So, treat mock exams as a very good practice tool, and, you'll navigate the pressure a lot better. So let's move on to understanding mock exam scoring. Now, let's talk about raw scores. So everyone understand raw scores. So for example, there are 50 questions and you get 40 of them right. So your raw score is 80%. It's quite apparent, isn't it? Now, raw scores don't really tell you how well or not well your child has done in the mock. So yes, they have scored 80%, which sounds good. But how have they compared to other students who took the exam? There's no information on that. So for that, you get something like a standardized score. So a lot of the grammar schools use standardized score for, ranking, and we'll understand the benefits of standardized score in a minute. So let's say you got a raw score of 80% and school tells you that your standardized score is 111. Now, what does that mean? Standardized score tell you about relative performance. So, they don't just tell you about how your child did, but how your child did relative to others. In most instances, a mean standardized score will be 100. So it means if you've got 100, you're bang on the middle. So, you have done the average score in that exam. So immediately we see that 111 is a much better score because it is more than the average, isn't it? So your child has done significantly better than the average. The range of standardized score is generally between 40 to 160. The extremes are very rare. So most students would score between 80 and 120. So you can see that 111 is a good score. And if you had something like 120, that would be an amazing score, in fact. Yeah. Standardized scores can also tell us about paper difficulty. Let's see how. So you got a raw score of 80%. and let's say your standardized score was 111. Now this automatically tells you that your child did better than the average. So it means the average score is less than 80%, isn't it? Maybe it's 70%. That means it was a difficult paper. So it was a low scoring paper where 80% is really good. On the other hand, if your standardized score was 95 on a raw score of 80%, that would mean that the average score is actually more than 80%. So it was an easy paper, isn't it? So a standardized score actually gives us a lot of information. And therefore, looking at standardized scores is better than looking at raw scores. So when you give a mock exam, I'm assuming that your mock provider will give you standardized scores. So this is the way to look at them. Yeah. So what is a good standardized score for admission? Now, that's a very hard question because it obviously depends upon the school you are targeting. So I'm giving you a very rough guideline on some of the schools for which we do mock exams, so we have a little more knowledge. So for example, in GL Bucks, now Bucks uses a standardized score of 121 plus. So in case your overall standardized score is 121 or more, you have passed the exam. Now, what happens is there are 4 subjects: English, maths, verbal reasoning, and non-verbal reasoning. So all of them have their standardized score mean at 100. Yeah. So if you add your score from all 4, you will get a standardized score, which is where 400 is going to be the mean because there are 4 subjects, right? So they do it in a slightly twisted format. But if you add all the standardized score and you divide by 4, that's going to be your GL Bucks standardized score. They do it slightly differently, but this is basically what happens. Yeah. For QE boys, there are 2 subjects. So you have English and maths, and each of them has a standardized score with the average score of 100. So whatever your score is in both, add both. And if you get something like 230 plus, that is generally supposed to be a very good score, and you have a very high chance of admission. Yeah. Similarly, Henrietta Barnett, there are 2 rounds. So looking at round 2 entry, in 2020, if you had a standardized score of 346 plus, that would give you entry into round 2. So obviously there are 3 subjects: VR, NVR, and English. So all 3 have a standardized score with the mean at 100. If you add all 3 scores which you achieved, and you've got a net standardized score of 346 plus, in 2022, you would have gotten an invitation to round 2. Yeah. So hopefully this is giving you a sense of, what standardized scores you need to achieve in the final exam to, kind of move on to round 2 or to, get admission. Similarly, for Sutton 11 plus, obviously there are a number of schools within Sutton. Each of them have a slightly different cutoff. For non-such, for example, in 2022, a standardized score of 206 plus would have gotten you an invite into round 2. Again, Sutton has English and maths in round 2. Both of them are standardized separately. And once you add them, you get your net score for round 1. Now, it is advised that you check your target school's website for more up-to-date information and, more information on how they calculate standardized scores, etc. And one word of caution: when you give mock exams, your score should be taken as a very rough guide only. So, they cannot be taken as a real assessment of how your child is going to do in the final exam. We'll talk a little bit more about this in the next slide as well. Now, what to do if your child is getting a low score in the mock exams? Now, the most important thing to do post mock exam is to review your child's mistakes with them. A lot of providers give you access to the question paper, or at least the questions which you got wrong in the exam. It's really important to go through these and to understand what was the right way to attempt these questions. And doing this will help you understand what is the shortcoming your child is facing in the exam. So there could be 3 problems which the child is facing. A, it could be a knowledge problem. So they don't actually know how to solve those problems. For example, if the child is not good at algebra, they don't actually know how to solve algebra equations. So that's a knowledge problem. It could be a time management problem. So the child is not able to complete the entire paper, or they're spending too much time on certain questions. So then it's a time management problem. Yeah. Finally, it could be accuracy problem. So they might be just making silly mistakes. So something which they knew, they just read wrong in the rough work or something like that. That's the accuracy problem. So you need to understand what's the problem and help your child address that. How do you do that? There are a number of summer courses which are available, which help you, address these issues. You have topic-wise books and tests which you can get if you have a knowledge problem in a certain area. Finally, if you don't want to do any of these, just practice, 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 will help you overcome all of these issues. So you could do practice through mock exams, or you could do practice through time tests. So there are 10-minute, 15-minute, 20-minute tests which are available, which are just great for practice. So the more practice you do, the better you will be at these aspects. Finally, don't worry too much if your child gets a low score in the mock exam. Two reasons for that. First is standardized scores have a chance of improving in the main exam. So let's understand, we just understood what standardized scores are. So they are relative performance, isn't it? So when your child is giving a mock exam, you might have a cohort of 30 students, or at max, maybe 100 students are giving the mock exam, right? So your standardized score in that mock is a reflection of how your child did vis-a-vis those 100 students or those 60 students, isn't it? In the final exam, you will have a lot of students who have not prepared as thoroughly. So when you are sitting for a mock exam, you are with students who are thinking about mock exams, who are probably a little bit more serious towards admission. For example, in GL Bucks, a lot of students have automatic enrollment. So they might not even want a grammar school place really, but the council enrolls them automatically into the exam. So when you're in that environment, getting the average score or a better than average score is going to be much easier. Yeah. So we have been doing mock exams for 3 years now. And we see it every year. The child is getting around 120 standardized score in the mocks, but in the final, they achieve a score of 135, 140. So don't worry too much about low score. There's a very good chance that in the final exam, this might get uplifted. Again, this does not mean that you aim for a lower score. So if 121 is passed, you must try to get 121 plus in the mock exams as well. But even if you're getting a lower score, don't worry too much. Keep it at the back of the mind. Yeah. Secondly, our job as parents and tutors is to help students manage the stress. So if they've got a low score, making a big deal out of it, getting them more tense over it is not going to help. Stress is not good for exam scores. So it is our job to, keep that stress to ourselves and just let them know that they are doing well, and they should focus on, improving that score rather than dwelling on a low score. Yeah. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, let's go through some time management basics, because this is something which a lot of students struggle with. Now, this slide has been taken from our Better Accuracy and Time Management course, which we do a couple of times in the year, and we'll be doing this during the summer break as well. So, but this tells you some very important time management basics. Each exam is going to have questions of varying difficulty. Yeah. So you will have some very easy questions, you will have some medium difficulty questions, and you will have some hard questions. That's the case in most exams. Our task in the mock exam or even in the final exam is to attempt all the easy questions. So solve all the easy questions, to solve most of the medium questions, and some of the hard questions. So if you do that, you have given it a really good attempt, and I'm sure you'll have a much better chance of, selection. So you don't have to do all the hard questions. You don't have to do all the medium questions, but you must try and do all the easy questions, some of the medium questions, most of the medium questions and some of the hard questions. Yeah. Now, what makes our task harder is the easy and medium questions are scattered throughout the paper. So what that means is the last portion of the paper could contain a lot of the easy questions. Yeah. So you don't know where they are going to be. If they were all sorted, that all the easy first, medium, then hard later, then it would be so much easier, isn't it? So we need to make sure that we attempt all questions, because the portion at the end, which we might skip out, might contain the easy questions. So you don't have a choice. You have to go through the whole paper and find out where all the easy and the medium questions are. You need to learn to skip questions which are taking too long. So sometimes you can identify by just looking at the question that this is going to take too long. So you need to circle that and come back to it at the end if you have time. Or sometimes you're stuck into the question and you are finding it's very hard and you're not able to solve it. Again, you circle and you come back to it later. Even if you can do these couple of things, then you're going to achieve much better time management. Yeah. Hopefully this makes logical sense. and just discuss it with your child and make sure that when you review a paper, you're looking at these things. Let's share some top tips for increasing your score. First, during the exam, you need to attempt the entire paper. As we discussed, the easy questions could be towards the end, so you need to attempt the entire paper. You need to use any remaining time to revise. Every year when we do mock exams, we find some students have completed the paper and they're just relaxing, they are not reviewing the paper. You need to review the paper as much as possible. If you have reviewed it once, you review it twice. If you have reviewed it twice, you review it 3 times. In my own experience, I have had a paper where I was able to review it 3 times, the full paper, because it was a very easy paper. But you don't stand still, you don't relax. Okay, you take a couple of seconds to relax, that's fine. But you don't waste time. You constantly revise so that you can weed out as many silly mistakes as possible. In case there is no negative marking, you need to answer all questions. So if there is no negative marking, which in most of the 11 plus exams do not, if there is negative marking, it will be clearly told to you at the start of the exam. Yeah. But if there's no negative marking, attempt all questions. Don't leave any questions unattempted. Yeah. Hopefully that's a very basic thing. After the exam, go through the solutions and understand the questions which you did not know or which you got wrong. So what was the right way to attempt those questions? This is the most important element of increasing your score on a regular basis. So whenever you give a mock or an exam at home, look at the questions which you got wrong or did not attempt and learn how to attempt those. As you review the papers, you will automatically understand the impact of silly mistakes, and this will improve over time. A lot of parents are very concerned that children are making too many silly mistakes, but it's a very common problem. You're not the only ones. Unfortunately, children are very young and they will make silly mistakes. The more practice they do, the better they will understand the impact of these silly mistakes and hopefully, learn to address them. Do not get tense. Like I mentioned, tension is not good for scores. So, whatever happens, don't get tense. Just do your best. Finally, look at backup schools. Now, this is not a reflection on your score. So it's not like if you're getting a bad score, look at backup schools. Even if you're getting the first rank in the mock exam, I believe everyone should have a backup plan. Yeah. What this does is it tells your child that, this is not the end all. So, they will probably not get as tense during the exam, because if we are constantly putting that pressure, this is it, you have to do well, you have to do well. Unfortunately, they will get tense and they might not do well just because of that reason. So as a family, do look at options, do let the child know that, this is an important exam, so work for it. But if you don't get in, if you don't do it, it's not the end of the world. We know a lot of parents where families worked really hard. Unfortunately, they could not get through. Maybe on the exam, they didn't just do their best. And, they are in local secondary schools and they're doing really well and they're really happy. So, understand this is not the end all. It's an important exam. It's an important opportunity. But at the same time, have a backup. And, this will help your child actually get in the exam, which is a little bit counterintuitive. But, you always need to have a backup. So hopefully, this was helpful. If you have any more doubts, any more issues, please feel free to get in touch with me. My email is on the screen. And we have a live chat feature on the website, oxbridgeinstitute.co.uk. You can try to live chat. If one of the mentors is available, they will try to guide you the best they can. In case nobody is available, please do leave a message and we do get back to every parent who leaves a message. Yeah. So thanks a lot, everyone, for attending this short video. I look forward to working with you guys in the near future. Thank you.